Hello and welcome back to the Ground and Root podcast. I am your host and holistic cancer dietitian, Dion Detraz, and I am really excited to share with you a special guest today. You may or may not realize this, but with this show, one of my primary goals really is to share stories of people who have moved through this experience integrating the best of all worlds. I want you to understand what tools and strategies and ideas you have available to you to help enhance your recovery, to make this journey as smooth as possible for you, to help you stay cancer free. It's one thing to hear me talk about it, and a completely other thing to hear it straight from the person's experience of using it in real life. So that's what we're going to do today. I have a very special friend here who has gone through a cancer journey and integrated a lot of the tools and strategies we talk about on this show. And I want you to hear what that was like for her. I'm going to let her talk a little bit more about herself in just a second, but I want to just welcome Valerie to our show today and to let you know that I first met Valerie. I had to actually look back at my notes, Valerie, because I was like, gosh, it's been a while, but how long ago
Mhm.
was it really? And it was the spring of 2021. So it's actually been quite a while. She came to me after receiving a diagnosis, having done surgery, about to start chemo, and really wanting some support to help herself move through chemo with the best possible outcome, with the least possible side effects. And so our paths crossed, which I'm so grateful that they did. So without further ado, I'm going to let you hear more about Valerie from Valerie. So welcome. I'm so happy to have you here today.
Thank you. I am so glad to be here and to be able to help anyone else who wants to prevent or tolerate and recover from cancer. I'm Valerie,
Lovely.
and I was diagnosed with breast cancer in this early spring of 2021. I found a lump at that time, and it had been a while since I had a mammogram because I didn't make time for myself. So get your screenings done and make time for yourself. So I found Dion when I was exploring, how could I support myself through treatments. I opted for surgery and then reconstruction and chemo and radiation. But whatever someone decides as part of their journey, that's up to you. But I researched, and so that's what I concluded would be the best for me, because I really felt like when I started to stop and make time and pay attention to how I felt, I could feel this spreading into my axillary lymph nodes once I stopped and took the time. So we're all busy, and I would just encourage you to stop and once a day self reflect, see how you're feeling in your body. Because I've ignored that because I work in healthcare and we're the worst at self care. I was so busy, and it was during COVID, and our colleagues were getting sick, our patients were getting sick, people were dying, and so I didn't have time to take care of
Mm,
myself. Um,
yeah.
First of self-reflection, see how you feel in your body, and I knew that I needed I was like, get it off me, get it off me. So in speaking with my oncologist, that's what we came up with, and he said, we're going to be aggressive with you to give you the best possible chance for a normal lifespan because you're so
Mhm.
healthy. Yay!
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So that's how it started.
Yeah.
And then
I
I
want to, I
found
want,
Dion. Yeah, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say that I wanted to just reflect back to you because I think some of what you just said, I hear all the time, right? It's so common. Two things. Thankfully, you came into this diagnosis with a solid, healthy body in other ways, right? You already had good health practices. You weren't run down by other issues or conditions, or obviously that makes a really big difference in how you're going to then move through the journey, right? You have more reserves, so all of that is helpful for sure. And the flip of that can also be like, but I'm healthy. why did I get
Right.
cancer?
Yes.
Which could feel very
Yes.
stressful.
Yes. Yeah. And you feel like your body has betrayed you. I've
Mm,
done all this stuff, and how could you do this to me? But
yeah.
I want everyone to know that it is not your fault. But you now have the power to find some things that maybe you could change or
Hmm.
alter
Hmm.
and support your health as you go through this journey. Or if you're looking at prevention, look
Hmm.
at your exposome, which I had never thought of before until so I am a nurse practitioner, and I recently finished a complementary and integrative women's health program with Aviva Ram. And so now I'm
Fabulous.
a certified practitioner, and the exposome and probably started when I was frolicking through clouds of DDT chasing the mosquito man when I was a little kid in New Jersey.
Mm.
And we had this oil on our skin, and it smelled chemically, and I was so proud of myself because I could keep up with the older kids running chasing after the
Oh,
mosquito
wow.
man in the clouds.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure that didn't help. And stress. One thing, just I loved the episode that you had about breath work and
Mm.
stress, because life is stressful and we all have stressors. But I wish we would teach this in schools
Yeah.
when we have stressors, how to deal with it instead of going 0 to 60, and learning to calm yourself down when you feel that,
Yeah.
which,
So,
yeah,
especially working in healthcare, right? Because
yes.
before I had, I'm going to say, the luxury of doing this work from home, having a private practice and really I get to decide the stress that I put myself under. Very
Mhm.
different than when you're working in a hospital or a clinic, which I did before. And yeah, it can be a very stressful environment. And you mentioned not only does your career just have this in general, but then it was right through the pandemic too, right? Which of course like elevated stress to crazy levels. So yeah, of course, like you think about there's this sort of this underlying I want to just reflect back something because I think it's important for everybody to hear that thankfully you came in with strong health, but there were these other components that were starting to shift the terrain of your environment but you just didn't
Mhm.
realize or even just
Right,
have the capacity because it was like day to day getting through the stressors of just trying to
right.
survive that
Yeah,
can start to take a toll.
absolutely. And looking back, there were something like I started having weird skin stuff
Mm,
probably about 5 years before I was diagnosed. So I went to dermatology and ended up on steroids probably 4 or 5 times in 2 years.
mm,
And I'm sure that suppressed my immune system a bit. So any abnormal cells that were circulating probably went woohoo. And I don't, obviously, I can't say if that contributed, but it
mm-hmm,
probably didn't help. And it could be
mm-hmm.
that the skin issues were a warning as well.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so this is all, I think what is important here, few things, and we'll continue this conversation, but just to say, as people are listening to this, especially if you can relate to Valerie's story, you're like, yeah, that was similar for me too. There are things that are in our awareness that we know are quote unquote healthy for us to do, and we do our best to follow those guidelines. And I want to ask you too, like, what were some of the things you were just already doing that was just like normal part of you? Because I know you already had health on your radar. You were doing things to be healthy, stay active. So I want to take a minute to talk about that. But then I also want us to think that when we try to help you understand, because that is a big piece of this show too, is to think about the reasons behind cancer. What are the risks? What are the potential root causes? And even though there's no guarantee, like we can't necessarily know 100% for sure, unless it was like actually an exposure to a specific chemical that caused the cancer. It's very difficult to know 100%, but we can start to chip away But what are some of the potential exposures, like you've already mentioned, that could have put a burden on the body?
Mhm.
And what are the things in our life that could have been influencing our immune system, right, which is our primary defense against cancer, that might have made it easier for cancer to grow? So none of this is your fault. It's just helping us understand what were some of the whys so that now
Mhm.
you have some direction going forward of what you
Right.
can focus on to try to help keep your risks down. So let's take that in two parts. Let's start with what were the healthy things you were already doing that was just like a normal part of your life.
Mhm. I always tried to eat healthy, grew my own organic vegetables. I'm a master gardener. So,
I remember
um,
that.
yeah, I love digging in the dirt and knowing where my food comes from. My coworkers would make fun of me because I would bring such healthy lunches and they would
Yeah.
go get fast food. And I didn't drink like sugary drinks. I like made my own herbal teas and drank lots of water, exercised, kept my weight, at least my BMI, under
Mm.
good control, did yoga every day, and walked. Before I was diagnosed, I was doing high intensity weightlifting once a week.
Okay.
But then I had to stop doing that probably maybe a year before I was diagnosed
Mm.
because COVID hit.
Yeah. So a lot of things,
Yeah.
quote unquote, right? Like
Yeah.
you were
Yeah.
already doing a lot of things right.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. So now you're facing treatment, right? Or you had, when we met, you had surgery, you're like about to start chemo. What were, so now as you moved through the rest of this journey, so you went through chemo, you went through radiation. What were some, that was your base, right? Like you had a good foundation. I'm assuming you did your best, and you can speak to this, to continue a lot of those things as you were able. But were there any
Yeah.
other tools or strategies that you brought in to further help your recovery and your experience of this journey?
Yeah. I guess I never really thought of all the stuff I had done before, but I did some extra supplementation. I had taken supplements before, and I wanted to make sure my thyroid was well
Mm,
supported. And I just started listening to the thyroid episode.
mm,
That was fascinating.
yeah.
I like seaweed snacks. Don't I know they're not everybody's cup of tea, but so I try to do those. I tried to continue eating the fresh vegetables and fruits, but when you're immunosuppressed with chemo, you have to rinse, soak them in vinegar and all of that. But I kept doing it. Fasting, which
Mm,
was something that you recommended. So and for people who think there is no way I can fast, you can do it. It is doable. And so I fasted 24 hours before, the day of, and the day after chemo. And I was able to do bone broth during that
mm-hmm,
time. If I was getting a little too hangry or
mm-hmm,
dizzy, hungry and angry or dizzy,
mm-hmm,
I would do bone broth, and I tons of water. So I did those things during treatment, and then extra supplements, things to support my gut health. I think we did
mm-hmm.
glutamate. Is it glutamate
It
powder?
could have been glutamine,
Maybe
most likely. Yeah.
glutamine, yeah,
Mhm.
glutamine powder.
Usually a
Um,
formula to help protect the gut from the
yeah,
toxicities of chemo. Yeah.
Yeah, I did that. And then I tried to continue. So I tried to get outside and walk.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the day after chemo, I couldn't do that, but I tried to walk at least a mile a day. And as long as the weather wasn't horrible and icy, I just tried to get
Mm-hmm.
out and appreciate just the trees and the seasons and the sky, and as part of my self-care. So I would say do what is available to you that day, and
Yeah.
it's going to be different
100%.
every day.
Absolutely. So with bringing some of those strategies in, especially during chemo, and I'm curious with we will do more episodes around fasting because obviously that's a big topic and it's one of my favorite tools. So we will certainly cover this a lot more in future episodes. But tell us so you mentioned obviously it was a bit easier than you thought it would be. So that was great. That helped you do it. But what did you notice? Like bringing in fasting, bringing in supplements, what was chemo like for you? How do you feel like it might have helped you?
obviously chemo sucks, but I think I tolerated it much better than I thought I would. I didn't have to spend it used to be 15, 20, 25 years ago, hours huddled over the toilet, or
Mm,
what we typically associate with chemo. I didn't have
hmm.
any of that. I do think the pre-medications are much better than they
Yeah.
used to be. So that was helpful. But I knew I needed to be aggressive in killing these cells that I knew were circulating. So that's why I opted for chemo. So I hope that answers
Yeah.
the question.
Right. So you've obviously, I think that is, it's important to put in perspective for people, right? Particularly if you're about to
Right.
face chemo and you're
Yeah.
scared of how it's going to make you feel. And you're right. Some of what we think we know about the experience is from previous, like maybe how it used to be, the
Right.
stories around how it used to be, or even imagery we might see in movies, which is like not
Yes.
necessarily accurate for
Right.
everyone. And so, to your point, it has gotten better over the years, thankfully, as far as
Mhm.
tolerating the side effects or symptoms from treatment. And we have a lot of tools and strategies available to us to help nip symptoms in the bud, right? So
Mhm.
something like fasting can be helpful in keeping toxicity down, or even just bringing in, like you mentioned, the glutamine, the gut support, so that your gut isn't as quite as wrecked as it could be from chemo.
Mhm. Right.
There's a lot of things you can do so the experience is still not fun. We're not going to say it's yes, sign me up. I definitely want to do that.
Yeah.
But it's it's easier or more tolerable than you might imagine. And I think that can reduce some of the anxiety and stress heading into treatment. Yeah.
There was an app that I used that had soothing music and meditations for like when you are, there was one called meditation for when you are starting a new medication. And so you think of this as being beneficial, not toxic and harming my body and all of that, because your body
I
has
love
an
that.
amazing ability to heal from so many things, and it can
Yeah.
heal after chemo and radiation.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you for saying that. Okay. So it's been now almost 5 years since you were
Mhm.
diagnosed, right? This
Right.
coming February, March, whenever like that
Yeah.
date was for you. Which is it's just like a big moment. It's a big milestone. For those of you who aren't familiar, and this will, I think, another probably really good future episode to understand in those sort of years after cancer, there is some fragility, right? So especially in the
Yeah.
first couple years, there's some fragility and risk for
Mhm.
recurrence. And then obviously the further out you go, the less and less risk, the less and less fragility. And the 5 years is really like this milestone marker for many cancers. We're like, okay, we're there. Like we can really like breathe again. So I'm curious how you're feeling, just even just emotionally. Like, how are you feeling heading into that? And then also thinking long term and helping yourself stay cancer free and live a long and healthy life with hopefully not a lot of anxiety every time you have to go in for a scan, which I know is it's a real thing. Tell us about
Sure.
that. What are you doing to try to help yourself as you hit this 5 year mark and like looking forward?
I continue the supplements, and I use some herbal supplements to support my stress response, which is something that is really important for me. I continue to do yoga. I try to do Tai Chi twice a week, which, if you have not done Tai Chi or yoga, just start and try to do what is available to you. There are lots of free videos on YouTube that you could try, find an instructor that you like, and just breathing with motion is very important. And
Mm,
then I've continued the healthy diet. I'm working with a naturopath, and I don't know if you know much about nutritional microscopy.
mm,
I think it's used more in Europe than it
mm.
is US, and there haven't been a lot of studies validating that, but it is very interesting to see as soon as you're finger is pricked, see all of your cells moving across the screen and them explaining to you, oh, this looks good. This looks good. You might need to work on this.
Mm,
It's fascinating. I've actually thought about getting a certification in that, but I'm going to research how much, if there's any studies that validate what the claims are.
mm,
I'm not sure about that, but I'm doing that right now and continuing my healthy diet, growing a lot of my own medicinal plants to make my own
mm.
tea. I
I
have
love that.
15, yeah, up to 15 different plants now that I grow.
It's wonderful.
And so those are some things that I'm doing.
Yeah.
Um,
And I'd say maybe even the biggest thing of all was you on having gone through this experience and then deciding to actually become an integrative provider.
oh
That's
yeah,
a
yep.
really big deal, right? Like
Uh-huh.
you really saw for yourself how supportive and helpful that was. And so now you're able to offer that to your patients.
Yeah,
Incredible.
and integrative, we use all the tools
Hmm.
available, just one or the other,
Yeah.
which I love, which is
Yeah.
one of the things that Dr. Aviva Ram emphasizes
Yeah.
in her program.
Yeah, it's like really using the best of all tools instead of getting too hyper focused on just one way to do things. And that's
Mhm.
really my approach too is we have so many tools available to us. Let's take
Mhm.
advantage of all that could be helpful, right? And
Yes,
that's an
yes,
integrative
we are
approach for sure.
so lucky today to have all this knowledge available. Let's use it.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And I love that now your patients are benefiting from your journey and deciding to
I hope
integrate this
so.
into your
Yeah.
work. Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. Okay, so that's a really big thing. And the last thing I want to ask, and then of course, if there's anything else you'd like to share, feel free. But thinking back to the beginning of our conversation and you mentioning once you took time to reflect on beyond just your healthy diet and exercise, but what else was happening behind the scenes for me? And you identified some of these toxin exposures, like even from childhood, that, could have played a role. Then obviously stress from COVID, stress from your job. Let's just assume that these two pieces are probably pretty important in your physiology and in your risk factors. So going forward, I'm curious what you've decided to do to try to help those two things in particular, like your detox support or toxin exposure, and then your stress support, stress management. You mentioned using some herbs to help with your stress response, but I'm
Mhm.
curious what's your plan going forward with those two things in particular?
Yeah, so fiber. So I do a fiber supplement every day. If you can pick one thing to start with, it's very difficult to get enough fiber with at least the standard American diet.
Sure.
If other things are outside of your budget, get some get a fiber supplement, which you could get at a discount store usually, and
Mhm.
start that. And so I do the fiber supplement. I try to eat fermented foods every day in one form or another. Make your own. You can chop up a head of cabbage real fine and sprinkle salt on it. And 4 weeks later, you have a fermented food.
I love that.
And
Yeah.
cabbage is cheap. Um,
Easier than you think too,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
So fermented foods to support gut health and really supports your whole body. And then I've continued my supplements. And if it is within someone's budget, I would encourage them to get some type of metabolic testing or methylation testing
Yeah.
to see how your body metabolizes things and
Yeah.
then figure out what you could do to support that. I think that is really important. And then I try to walk at least a mile a day. Some of that is during work, some of it's at home, and then continue to work on my stress response.
Yeah.
Um,
Which is
so,
easier said than done. right?
It is. And
But you
just to,
mentioned a few things. You're already
yeah.
doing, certainly going for walks outside or being in your garden, I'm sure
Oh, yeah.
helps calm the nervous
Yes.
system. You like doing yoga, tai chi, all of this is going to help. Is there anything that you do like even just in your workday? Let's because your work can be stressful. So if you're getting a heightened stress response in your workday, do you have any
Mhm.
strategies that help you there?
Music. Sometimes
Mm,
I'll put my earbuds in, and I just recently read an article that said the average song is 2 minutes and 40 seconds. If you can take 2 minutes and 40 seconds out of your day, and most of us can at some point,
yeah.
um, and take that time to do some belly breathing and make sure your shoulders and neck are getting loosened up a little bit. 2 minutes. For me, it's classical music usually helps me. And so that is something that I try to do. And sometimes we don't even have time to go to the bathroom, but it's, you know what? I can take 2 minutes to go to the bathroom. It's
I was going to say,
okay.
and listen to your music at the same time. You could
Right,
piggyback
right.
those two things
Yeah, trying to pack in as
if you
much in
have
that
to.
two
Right.
minutes as possible. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Take some calming breaths, go to the bathroom,
Yeah,
listen to
yeah,
music, and
yeah.
then go back to work. Yeah.
Chug some water. Yeah. Yeah, and I try to do herbal tea if I can feel my stress response really like over a period of a couple days. I'll mix up like linden and
Mm,
oat straw and lavender. I try not to do too much lavender because it can be estrogenic, and my cancer was strongly estrogen positive. But herbs that if it smells good to you and you smell it and it feels and it's soothing, that
hmm
is probably a good one for you to use once in a while. So sometimes I do that. If I have a giant tea bag in my water bottle, then that's I made my own and I'm trying to relax.
Yeah, I love that.
Serenity now.
I know, right? That's so funny. You know what? Here, the take home message is we do the best we can.
Yeah,
And these
yeah,
are all fabulous tools and they're very practical. You fit them in where you can. It doesn't mean you're never going to have stress. That's just not normal. Of course, we're all going to deal with stress. We probably don't even want it to be 100% gone. Like stress actually
right.
can be very motivating and make us be productive. And stress is not
Mhm.
all bad. But how long we stay, to your point, how long we stay in the stress response, right? If we can't bring ourselves back down to neutral, that's where it becomes problematic. So, all of these little tools, even the bathroom break, is going to help
Mhm.
you come back to neutral, right?
Yeah, yeah,
I love that.
yeah.
Those are good. Those are good practical strategies. I hope our listeners agree. Like, I can do that.
Yeah.
I can put a tea bag in my water that I'm drinking anyways, and get
Uh-huh.
some of those benefits, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So good. One last thing I thought of, I know I already said last thing, but then I thought of something else as you were talking, is in the very beginning, you had mentioned also, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but in a nutshell, that just not prioritizing your own self care and needs. Like you mentioned, missing some of your screenings or just putting things on the back burner because you had other stuff to do. That is a very common trait. After having done this work now for over a decade with people moving through cancer, I can tell you that pretty much everybody has that in common. That tends to be a trait that we're all just either because our lives are super busy and there's just not a lot of time. That's a common one, or because we're putting other people's needs ahead of our own, whether that's our work or our family members or our kids or whatever it is, that we neglect us in the
Yes.
process. Where really, I think what cancer can do for you is just reprioritize the importance of you and your health and your needs. And like ultimately, you have to come first. And then you'll be able to serve and support and help everybody else. So I'm curious if that has shifted for you in any way after moving through this journey and how you're trying at least to prioritize you and your needs again.
Yeah, it has. I still struggle with, if I'm being honest, with making time for myself. But sometimes it's if you can take 5 or 10 minutes. And if you're a mom with little kids or dad with little kids or busy, we all know sometimes the only time you get by yourself is in the bathroom, and you might have to even lock the door while they're
Yeah.
banging
True.
on the door. But just those times are temporary. This just
Hmm.
tell yourself this is only temporary. Whatever you're going through, this is only temporary. I can get through this. Take a breath. But yeah, I do still struggle with that, but I am getting better at it
Yeah,
because it's a journey for all of us.
it is. And it's a work in
So,
progress, particularly if you've spent
mhm.
decades being a
Yeah,
certain way. It's going to take a
yeah.
while for you to shift that,
Mm,
right? Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. You have to make new pathways in
Mm,
your brain, which is good for
hmm.
your brain. Yeah.
100%. And good for you, for your body, for everything, body, mind,
Mhm.
spirit, all of it.
Yes.
Valerie, it's been such a treat to have you here on the show. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you'd like to say or leave our listeners before we wrap up?
Yeah, you might feel like you're going through this journey alone, and there are parts of it where you have to do it alone by yourself, but you have people behind you who want to support you and help you. And if you're someone who has a hard time accepting help, please just try to let others love on you. It's okay because you probably have spent a lot of time loving on other people. Now it's your turn. And let
Yeah,
other people be blessed by loving on you.
I love that. That's perfect way to wrap up our show. Thank you so much, Valerie. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you all for listening. I hope you found inspiration in Valerie's story. And I invite you to follow along and subscribe and share with your friends and family. And I can't wait to see you again in the next episode. Bye, everyone.